Here in this slide, this is an example of taking a great idea and bringing it internally to our own business. Remember the intranet. They said, hey, the internet is working well. People know how to use it. Let's have an intranet private to our company. Great idea. Here, Best Buy says we're going to make our own little Facebook, Blue Shirt Nation social media site. Why? All of our employees know how to use Facebook. It's an effective way to share information, posting stuff, best practices with customers, information about products, whatever it is. So they took the idea of the Facebook social network and the Facebook technology and brought it internally. And so that's always a great idea. I mean, that really, if you think of Uber versus the power drills, you could do the power drill example in your neighborhood with 25 houses. So you're taking a great idea and actually having it work, and having it work smartly for you. Twitter. So we know Twitter is what's referred to as a microblog. So people like me who talk too much, it forces you to be succinct. A tweet used to be 140 characters. It has moved up to 280. There are over 500 million users on Twitter, more than 1 billion tweets sent per week. And again, we see the influence that Twitter has on things like politics and public opinion. It's just very, very powerful. A mashup is a collection, very similar to an RSS feed. And it said again, just on that first page of that chapter, it said many adults nowadays, their newspaper is social media. So they can combine sources, and my children laugh at my wife and I for watching television, for watching the news. They get everything online. So you can make your own dashboard, if you will, using one of these technologies. And then we come to the wisdom of crowds. Whether it's Facebook, and 85%, approximately 85% of college age students have a Facebook account. So you think of that, the power there. Whether it's something like Facebook or something else, and half of all Facebook users visit Facebook at least once a day, with the average time spent being over 50 minutes. If you think about that, you eventually get the wisdom of crowds. In 351, we have, with participation quizzes and the quizzes, I get quick feedback. With the discussion boards, it'd be more interactive. But in that case, you're giving me a prediction market. I know what you understand. I know what you don't. But certainly on the internet, large number of users, instead of outsourcing, we get crowdsourcing. So some of the social issues that we've seen gather traction. You start seeing the power of the crowd, the wisdom, hopefully the wisdom of the crowd, pushes issues and public opinion and national policy in certain directions. So we're familiar with outsourcing in technology. This is called crowdsourcing. The crowd says this is the way it's going to be, and that can and has become very powerful. So here's a suggestion for you in your company. If it's not there when you start work, you can politely and professionally suggest that you have a social media awareness and response team, just to acknowledge the fact that this is happening and it very much matters to your company. So if that doesn't exist, suggest it. Watch out for fatty, sock puppets, and astroturfing. Fatty, read the story in your book. Young lady said she posted that she had been given a job offer from Cisco, and she said, now I've got to weigh the long, nasty commute and doing something I don't like versus the benefit of the high paycheck. Well, she posted that, and of course, Cisco saw it, and they said, we're pretty sophisticated with all things internet. Maybe you don't want to work for us after all. And then, of course, there was a backlash the other way that said Cisco, the big company, was bullying the poor prospective employee. So it works both ways. A quote that I like, that I think is important, that I've told students for years, is a line from a technology executive who said, well, let me start with the original line. The line, Las Vegas tagline for advertising is, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The idea is you can be naughty in Vegas and nobody's going to talk about it. So the technology executive said, what happens on Facebook? Sorry, no. The technology executive said, what happens in Vegas stays on Facebook. And the point there is, if you post something online, the chances that it will be saved are very high. So don't post a picture of yourself getting drunk. Be careful posting pictures of yourself at supporting certain things. I mean, you have to be careful because it's going to stay there, and you will be seen, you or your company, worst case, will be seen as being that, whatever that is. And, it can hurt your reputation. So electronic stuff gets saved and essentially has a forever lifetime. So you want to be very careful how you post things to your various social media outlets. What's a sock puppet? A sock puppet is a fake persona. This happens all the time. So think of another crowdsourcing thing, something like TripAdvisor or Yelp, where you're rating things. If you're going to take a trip and you want to stay in a hotel, you might go to Yelp, you might go to TripAdvisor, you might go somewhere else to see how people rated that hotel. That's the power of peer production and collaboration. But of course, you can imagine that someone from the hotel might see some bad reviews and start posting fake positive reviews. So here again is the fake news sort of concept, which is so easy to happen in our current world. And when you do that, someone who does that is called a sock puppet. That's the person that goes online and says, this is the best hotel I've ever stayed at. That might be the manager of the hotel. And astroturfing is the process of doing that on the web, doing it many times. So if I went on Rate My Professor, for example, and posted a review of myself as the best professor ever, and then also gave myself a chili pepper and said, Downing is so hot, I would be a sock puppet guilty of astroturfing. So why do this? Hopefully it's obvious by now. This stuff matters. It matters to business. And again, we have the network effects. More friends, more value. And the social graph is how you're tied together with everyone else. Where do your pictures go on Facebook or elsewhere? They have to have these big, if YouTube is doing 500 hours of video per minute, they have to store that. And think how big videos are. Anyhow, Facebook stores your pictures, and Facebook is the leader in photo storage and hosting. You got to remember something like Snapchat and Instagram. And remember, Facebook owns Instagram. This stuff moves fast, gets hard to keep track of. Snapchat does not store your photos. So that's why Facebook is bigger. And Facebook owns Instagram. So they are the world's leader in photo storage and upload. Well over 3 billion per month. What was the statistic on Instagram? Here's Snapchat, which is decreasing in popularity. 95 million photos each day on Instagram. And then Facebook has the extra ones. Incredible, incredible statistics. Why is Facebook so successful? They have brand. They have network effects. They have switching costs. Once you have friends, you don't want to go to a new social media platform. I believe this question, there was something about technology, cutting edge servers. That's not why they're successful. Anyone can buy technology. Facebook has the other stuff. Which is Facebook the leader in? Photo storage. It's not Twitter. Twitter is small. We know about cloud programming. The GitHub example of how they're working together is amazing. We learned about software as a service, essentially renting software. So social networking wants programming. Here's traditional versus on-demand. This is buy versus rent. Cover that. But Facebook apps, Facebook does something called an API. It allows developers to program, so something like Candy Crush or Words with Friends can become incredibly popular. Why do they want application developers to develop applications on their platform? Because the more users, the more popular, the more eyeballs, the more advertising revenue. So Unit 7 is going to be about search and Google. You look at this, Google gets a 2% click-through, and again, this changes very quickly. Click-through meaning an ad pops up and somebody clicks on it. Facebook is much lower click-through rate. But, and why? Why is this? Because with Google, you're hunting for something. If you do a Google search, you're looking for that particularly. So they know what to advertise. For example, if I go onto Google and search for cordless drill, I would expect to see advertisements for cordless drills on the top of the page and the side of the page. Whereas on Facebook, it's more of a hike. I'm looking at my friend's cat video or whatever. They're not sure what I'm interested in. It's very hard to target me. Although Facebook is getting better. You'll see in your textbook there's a company called CM Photographics. It's a wedding photography company. And they targeted women 24 to 30 years old whose status was engaged. Well, that's easy, right? And they spent $600 in Facebook ads and they generated $40,000 in new revenue. So Facebook is doing well with advertising, but they do not lead in advertising. Google crushes them, in fact, because of this hunt versus the hike idea. But do not kid yourself. People still pay a lot for Facebook ads, even though it's harder to quantify, because Facebook is used more for brand building, where you just feel, you might not click on the ad, but you feel positive about a company, you see positive things. And for the new ad model, you say, if you're a marketing person or anyone, how do we work in this new digital era? Well, so why the lower click-through? The hike versus the hunt. What is the most persuasive and valuable method of promoting products and services? Still to this day, word of mouth. Why do we bring it up here? Because Facebook has essentially automated word of mouth. So this is incredibly powerful brand building and advertising potential. if I put a like on something, I think I put a like on the Golf Channel one time, and then all my friends see Chuck Downing likes the Golf Channel, and so now I'm contributing to their brand through automated word of mouth. Incredibly powerful. So they're leveraging that truism. And remember, with everything here, whether it's fake news or just an account, we saw that these Russians can create thousands and thousands of fake Facebook accounts. Anyone can make it. So if you're communicating with me, unless over time you see a consistency and a trust, you don't know who created that account. So if you're communicating with Jessica C on Facebook, you cannot be comfortable. Again, how do you do it? You cross validate. You talk to her. Is this your site? Did you really post this? You build multiple channels for trust, and so you do not get burned by fake news or something like that. Okay, so kind of a quick discussion of this very powerful unit. Um, Good luck with the participation quiz as always, and the quiz, and make sure to read the chapters.